Dark blood ties, the secret that could destroy the Dupree dynasty. The perfectly manicured lawns of Fairmont Crest have always concealed secrets, but none as explosive as the one Vernon Dupree has been carrying for 50 years. Behind the polished smile of the former senator lies a truth so devastating it could shatter everything the Dupree family has built, and Anita, the woman who has stood by his side through decades of triumph, is about to discover that her husband has been living a lie. Joey Armstrong didn't arrive in Fairmont Crest by accident. The casino owner with his dangerous smile and criminal empire has been orchestrating an elaborate game of revenge, and the Duprees are his ultimate target. What no one knows, what Vernon has desperately hidden from everyone, including his beloved wife, is that Joey isn't just another villain circling their family. He's Vernon's blood brother, abandoned by the Dupree family half a century ago for crimes that still haunt the family's history. The revelation begins quietly, as the most dangerous secrets always do. Vernon has been receiving mysterious phone calls late at night, slipping away from Anita with weak excuses. His behavior has grown increasingly erratic, especially as Joey's presence in Fairmont Crest becomes more entrenched. The casino owner has embedded himself into the community, seducing Vanessa McBride, manipulating Randy Parker, and now, most terrifyingly, he's begun circling closer to the Dupree family itself. What Vernon knows, what keeps him awake at night in cold sweats, is that every move Joey has made has been calculated revenge. The murder of Doug McBride wasn't random criminal violence, it was a message. Doug had stumbled too close to the truth about Joey's past, and he paid the ultimate price. But Doug's death was just the beginning of Joey's master plan to dismantle the black royalty that cast him out decades ago. The truth stretches back to a scandal the Dupree family has buried so deep that even Anita doesn't know about it. In the early 1970s, when Vernon was just beginning his political career, his older brother, the man who would become Joey Armstrong, committed a crime that threatened to destroy everything the Duprees represented. The details remain murky, whispered about only in the darkest corners of Vernon's memory, but the consequences were clear. The family made a choice. To protect their rising star, to preserve their reputation as pillars of the black community, they erased Joey from their history. They changed his name, severed all ties, and left him to face the consequences alone. For 50 years, Joey survived. He built an empire in the shadows, the casino, the criminal network, the web of corruption that now extends its tendrils throughout Maryland. But he never forgot. He never forgave. And when he finally had the power to strike back, he returned to Fairmont Crest with one purpose: to destroy the family that destroyed him. Joey's revenge has been methodical and cruel. He deliberately seduced Vanessa, knowing that her connection to the community would give him access and legitimacy. He cultivated Randy as his enforcer, using the man's desperation to create a weapon he could point at anyone who got too close. And then there was Doug, poor, gambling-addicted Doug, who in his drunken ramblings let slip something he'd heard about Vernon's past, something about a brother who disappeared. Doug's accident sent a clear message that only Vernon understood. Joey knows everything. And he's coming for the entire family. The tension escalates when Joey begins making subtle comments in public that only Vernon can understand, references to childhood memories, to a family that once existed, to betrayals that can never be undone. Vernon's hands shake as he realizes his brother isn't content with murder and manipulation. Joey wants Vernon to suffer, to watch helplessly as everything he loves is systematically destroyed. But Joey's most devastating move is yet to come. He's befriended Martin, Vernon's grandson, the one with his own dark secret from 2 years ago. Joey knows about Martin's covered-up crime because he's made it his business to know everything about the Duprees. And now he's positioned himself as Martin's ally, someone who understands what it means to be sacrificed for the family's reputation. The parallel is intentional and cruel. Joey is grooming Martin to understand exactly what Vernon did to him 50 years ago. He's planting seeds of resentment, whispering that Vernon will always choose the family name over the people he claims to love. It's psychological warfare at its finest, and Vernon is powerless to stop it without revealing the truth. Meanwhile, Vernon's desperation grows. He's tried everything to protect his family without exposing the secret. He's paid people off, pulled political strings, even considered going to Joey privately to beg for mercy. But he knows his brother too well. Joey doesn't want money or apologies. He wants to watch the mighty Duprees fall, to see the black royalty of Fairmont Crest exposed as frauds who built their empire on betrayal and lies. The breaking point comes when Joey makes his boldest move yet. At a country club event, with all of Fairmont Crest's elite gathered, Joey casually mentions to Anita that Vernon has been keeping secrets. The comment is vague enough to seem innocent, but Anita, who knows her husband better than anyone, sees the fear flash across Vernon's face. That night, she confronts him, demanding to know what Joey meant. Vernon's walls finally crumble. Faced with his wife's unwavering gaze, he confesses everything. He tells her about the brother the family erased, about the crime that happened 50 years ago, about the choice he made to protect his future at Joey's expense. He reveals that every murder, every manipulation, every dark deed Joey has committed in Fairmont Crest has been part of an elaborate revenge plot against the family that abandoned him. Anita's reaction is worse than Vernon feared. It's not just anger at the secret, though that burns fierce and bright. It's the betrayal of their entire marriage. How many times has she stood beside Vernon as he spoke about integrity, about family loyalty, about protecting those who can't protect themselves? And all the while, he abandoned his own brother to darkness and became the architect of his transformation into a monster. "You created Joey Armstrong," Anita tells him, her voice cold with fury. "Every person he's hurt, every life he's destroyed, that blood is on your hands as much as his." Vernon tries to defend himself, to explain the impossible position he was in, to make Anita understand that he was young and scared and the family pressured him. But Anita won't hear it. The man she married would have found another way. The man she thought she knew wouldn't have sacrificed his brother to save himself. Now Vernon faces an impossible choice. Joey's vendetta is escalating, and people are going to die. The only way to stop his brother is to expose the truth publicly, to destroy the Dupree reputation that Joey seeks to dismantle anyway. But if Vernon comes forward, he'll lose everything: his legacy, his family's standing, and most painfully, any chance of redemption in Anita's eyes. Yet if he stays silent, Joey will continue his campaign of terror. He'll manipulate Martin into turning against Vernon. He'll seduce or destroy more people connected to the family. And eventually, he'll reveal the truth himself, in the most devastating way possible, ensuring that the Duprees fall spectacularly. As the story barrels toward its climax, all of Fairmont Crest begins to suspect that Joey Armstrong is more than just a criminal interloper. His vendetta feels personal, his knowledge of the Duprees too intimate. Whispers begin circulating about connections between Joey and Vernon, about a family secret buried in the past. Vernon, isolated from Anita and drowning in guilt, must finally confront his brother. The two men meet in secret, and for the first time in 50 years, they face each other not as strangers but as the brothers they once were. Joey's rage is palpable, his pain raw and unhealed despite the decades. He tells Vernon about the hell he endured, about how the family's betrayal broke something inside him that could never be repaired. But Vernon fights back, revealing that he's suffered too. Living with the guilt, watching his brother become a monster, knowing that he's responsible, it's been its own kind of hell. He begs Joey to stop, to find another way to heal that doesn't involve destroying innocent people. Joey's response is chilling. "You want to talk about innocent people? I was innocent. And you threw me away." The confrontation ends without resolution, but it plants a seed of doubt in Joey. For the first time, he sees the cost of his revenge not just on the Duprees but on himself. He's become exactly what the family feared he would become, and in seeking revenge, he's validated every terrible choice they made. As Fairmont Crest holds its breath, waiting for the next shoe to drop. Both brothers must make their final choices. Will Joey follow through with his plan to utterly destroy the Duprees? Will Vernon find the courage to come forward and accept responsibility for his past? And can Anita ever forgive the unforgivable? The Dupree dynasty hangs in the balance, and the sins of the past have finally come due. In Fairmont Crest, where image is everything and secrets are currency, the truth about Joey Armstrong and Vernon Dupree will either tear the community apart or, impossibly, offer a path toward redemption that no one saw coming. One thing is certain: when the truth finally emerges, nothing in Fairmont Crest will ever be the same. The gates that have protected the Duprees for so long are about to come crashing down, and the entire community will have to reckon with the darkness that has always lurked beneath the surface of their perfect world. Next, the revelation came like a thunderclap across Fairmont Crest and Los Angeles. When Naomi Hawthorne publicly declared she didn't want the baby growing inside her, she unknowingly painted a target on her back, one that would lead her straight into the clutches of one of the most sinister operations the region had ever known. Jacob Hawthorne had pleaded with his wife, desperate to change her mind about the pregnancy. But Naomi remained resolute, her career ambitions and fears about losing her identity overwhelming any maternal instinct. She confided in friends, spoke openly about her decision, never imagining that someone was listening, someone who saw her unwanted child not as a person, but as a commodity. That someone was Joey Armstrong, the casino owner's secret empire. On the surface, Joey Armstrong presented himself as a legitimate entrepreneur, the charismatic owner of Lakeview Casino who had pulled himself up from humble beginnings. He smiled easily, dressed impeccably, and moved through Fairmont Crest's social circles with the confidence of someone who belonged. But beneath that polished exterior lurked something far more sinister. For years, Joey had been operating a sophisticated child trafficking ring, one that specialized in acquiring newborns from desperate or unwilling mothers and selling them to wealthy clients on the black market. His network was vast, reaching from the casino's back rooms to hospital corridors, from social service offices to the most exclusive neighborhoods. He had doctors on his payroll, lawyers who falsified documents, and enforcers who made problems disappear. When word reached Joey that Naomi Hawthorne, a successful lawyer married to a detective, was openly rejecting her pregnancy, his interest was piqued. Here was a woman of means and intelligence who didn't want her baby. In Joey's twisted logic, this made her the perfect target. She wouldn't fight to keep a child she never wanted. She might even be grateful, he reasoned, if the problem simply went away. He was catastrophically wrong. The abduction. It happened on a Thursday evening. Naomi had stayed late at her office, working on case files, trying to lose herself in the familiar comfort of legal briefs and precedents. Anything to avoid thinking about the life growing inside her and the impossible choice ahead. She never saw them coming. Two men in medical scrubs appeared as she walked to her car in the underground parking garage. Before she could scream, a cloth covered her face, the chemical smell overwhelming her senses. The world tilted, darkened, and disappeared. When Jacob came home to an empty house and unanswered calls, he knew immediately something was wrong. His detective instincts, honed by years on the force, screamed that this wasn't a case of Naomi working late or visiting friends. By midnight he had mobilized every resource at his disposal, but Naomi had vanished without a trace. Inside the secret facility, Naomi woke to sterile white walls and the steady beep of medical equipment. Her wrists were secured to the hospital bed, not with police handcuffs, but with soft restraints designed to hold without leaving marks. The room was clean, almost clinical, with everything necessary for medical care but nothing personal, nothing human. A woman in pristine medical scrubs entered, her smile professional but empty. "Good morning, Naomi. I'm Dr. Chun. You're going to be staying with us for a while." "Where am I? What is this?" Naomi's voice cracked with fear and confusion. "You're in a private medical facility. You're here because you have something valuable, and we're going to take very good care of you and your baby until delivery. The horror washed over Naomi in waves as Dr. Chen explained, with chilling casualness, that the organization specialized in matching unwanted children with families willing to pay premium prices. Naomi would be held here, given excellent prenatal care, and kept comfortable until she gave birth. Then the baby would be sold to the highest bidder, and Naomi would be released, with a substantial financial incentive to keep quiet. And if I refuse? Naomi demanded, her lawyer's mind already calculating options, looking for leverage. Dr. Chen's smile never wavered. Then you'll find out what happens to women who cause problems. We've been doing this for a very long time, Naomi. We're very good at making people cooperate. The unlikely alliance. Back in Fairmont Crest, Jacob's investigation hit wall after wall. Police resources were stretched thin, and without evidence of foul play, the department couldn't justify a massive manhunt. Desperate and terrified, Jacob found himself in the last place he ever expected to be, Joey Armstrong's casino office. Bill Spencer sat beside him, the media magnate's face grim with determination. Bill's own complicated family situation, dealing with his grandson's future and Luna's imprisonment, had given him a fierce protectiveness toward children and families. When Jacob's brother reached out through Bill's connections, asking for help, Bill couldn't refuse. I never thought I'd be sitting here with you two, Jacob admitted, looking between Bill and Joey. My wife is missing, and you're my last hope. Joey leaned back in his leather chair, his expression unreadable. On the surface, he seemed genuinely concerned, the helpful community businessman wanting to assist in a crisis. I hear things, Detective Hawthorne. Things the police might not. If someone in this area is involved in your wife's disappearance, I can ask questions you can't. What Joey didn't reveal was his own racing thoughts. When his lieutenants had brought him the news that they'd acquired a high-value target, he'd been pleased. But they'd failed to mention that the target was the wife of a detective. This complication could unravel everything. Bill leaned forward, his businessman's instincts sensing something off about Joey's too smooth cooperation. Let's be clear, Armstrong. If you know something, anything, about what happened to Naomi Hawthorne, now's the time to come clean. I'm just offering to help, Joey replied smoothly. Let me make some calls. The investigation deepens. Over the following days, an uneasy partnership formed. Jacob, driven by love and desperation, followed every lead. Bill, using his media empire's resources, started digging into recent disappearances and adoption irregularities in the area. And Joey, playing both sides, tried to figure out how to extract himself from the disaster his operation had created. It was during a late-night session, reviewing old case files, that Jacob made a connection that would crack everything wide open. A pattern emerged from the data: young mothers, unwanted pregnancies, babies who disappeared into private adoptions with suspiciously sparse paper trails. The adoptions had been processed through various agencies, but they all shared one common thread: they'd been facilitated by lawyers and social workers who frequented Joey Armstrong's casino. It's been right here the whole time, Jacob realized, spreading the files across Bill's conference table. The casino isn't just a business. It's where they make connections, where money changes hands away from scrutiny. Bill studied the documents, his expression darkening. How far back does this go? Years. Maybe decades. Jacob's hands trembled as he reached for another file. And look at this. Some of these cases were handled by social services during Vernon Dupree's time in office. The name hung in the air like a bomb. Vernon Dupree, the respected former senator, patriarch of one of Fairmont Crest's most prestigious families. The implications were staggering. Vernon Dupree's dark secret. Vernon Dupree had built his political career on family values and child welfare. He'd championed legislation to protect children, established programs for at-risk youth, and presented himself as a grandfather figure to his community. But buried in his past was a secret he'd spent decades hiding. In the early years of his political career, Vernon had discovered a child trafficking operation within the social services system he oversaw. Rather than expose it and risk the scandal damaging his rising political star, he'd made a devil's bargain. He'd helped cover up the operation in exchange for the traffickers' support, financial backing, favorable media coverage, and the silence of those who might oppose him. Over time, Vernon had convinced himself he'd made the right choice. He told himself the operation would have continued anyway, that his political career allowed him to help far more children through legislation than he could have by exposing a single criminal network. But the truth was simpler and darker. He'd chosen his ambition over justice. When Joey Armstrong had established his operation years later, he'd done his research. He knew about Vernon's past, about the leverage he held over the former senator. Vernon had provided cover when needed, used his connections to smooth over investigations, and ensured that Joey's network could operate with minimal interference. Now, with Jacob Hawthorne and Bill Spencer circling closer to the truth, Vernon faced his reckoning. The rescue plan? Inside the facility, Naomi had been gathering information, observing patterns, looking for weaknesses. She noted the shift changes, the security protocols, the moments of carelessness when the staff thought she was sleeping. Her lawyer's training and natural intelligence made her a dangerous prisoner, even restrained and pregnant. She'd also made an ally, a young nurse named Maria who'd been recruited to the organization under false pretenses, promised a legitimate medical position only to discover the truth too late. Maria was terrified of the consequences of leaving, but Naomi worked on her slowly, carefully, building trust and offering hope. "Help me get a message out," Naomi whispered during one of Maria's overnight shifts. "Help me, and I'll make sure you're protected. My husband is a detective. Bill Spencer has resources. We can get you away from these people." Maria's hands shook as she made her decision. "There's a phone in the director's office. I can't promise anything, but I'll try." The message that reached Jacob 3 days later was brief, cryptic, but unmistakable: coordinates, a description of the facility, and a single word: hurry. The confrontation. The raid came at dawn. Jacob, working with trusted members of his police unit, coordinated with federal authorities once they understood the scope of the operation. Bill Spencer had used his media connections to document everything, ensuring that whatever happened, the truth would come out. Joey Armstrong knew the end was coming. His carefully constructed empire was crumbling, and he faced a choice: run, fight, or cooperate. In a final meeting with Jacob and Bill, held in a secure location with federal agents present, Joey made his play. "I'll tell you everything," he said, his usual charms stripped away to reveal the calculating criminal beneath. "The facilities, the network, the clients, the money trail. All of it. But I want a deal." "You're not in a position to negotiate," Bill growled. "Maybe not. But you want Vernon Dupree, don't you?" Joey's smile was bitter. "You want to know how this operated for so long, how it stayed hidden, who provided protection. I can give you all of that." Vernon Dupree didn't just know about the old operation, he helped rebuild it. "He's been my partner for years." The revelation sent shockwaves through the room. A former senator, a pillar of the community, complicit in child trafficking. It was almost too monstrous to believe, but the documentation Joey provided left no doubt. The rescue? The facility was located in a repurposed medical clinic on the outskirts of the region, hidden in plain sight as a private birthing center for wealthy clients seeking discretion. When the authorities breached the building, they found not just Naomi, but 5 other pregnant women being held against their will. Jacob burst into Naomi's room, and for a moment, they simply held each other, both trembling with relief and emotion. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry I didn't protect you." "You found me," Naomi replied, tears streaming down her face. "You saved us." The us hung between them, a recognition that despite everything, despite her fears and doubts, the baby she carried was theirs, was real, was worth fighting for. The aftermath. The arrests came swiftly and publicly. Joey Armstrong was taken into custody, his casino empire seized as evidence. The doctors, nurses, and administrators of the trafficking network were rounded up, their carefully maintained facades crumbling under the weight of evidence. But the biggest shock came when federal agents arrived at Vernon Dupree's elegant home in Fairmont Crest. The former senator, faced with overwhelming evidence of his decades-long complicity, chose not to fight. His arrest sent shockwaves through both communities, shattering the image of the beloved patriarch and exposing the rot beneath Fairmont Crest's polished surface. For Vernon's family, his wife Anita, his daughters Nicole and Danny, the revelations were devastating. How could the man they'd loved and admired have been complicit in such horror? How many lives had been destroyed by his ambition and cowardice? The legal proceedings would take years, but the truth was finally exposed. The trafficking network, which had operated for more than 2 decades, was dismantled. The children who could be traced were reunited with their birth families or placed in legitimate adoptions. Compensation funds were established for victims.